In this Fextra Life video, we're going to be taking a look at Bellwright, which is a medieval survival RPG, kind of like a city builder element as well, that has a new update that's coming out today, right at the time of this video release. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the story and setting, like the plot of the game and why you're doing what you're doing, the gameplay mechanics of it and combat of the game, the crafting of it, the tech trees available to research in Bellwright so you know what you can build and craft, and also the new content that's free for anyone who owns the game. So if you pick up the game today, it'll be free to play, or if you already own the game, then you might want to check it out again and check out this content. However, before we get into the details themselves, a big shout out to Snail Games for sponsoring this video. If you guys like what you see in our video and you want to help support the Fextra Life YouTube channel, you can click the link below in order to do so. So talking a little bit about the story and setting of the game first, Bellwright is set in a gritty and realistic medieval era world, with the player beginning their journey from the kingdom of Carvenia, a realm under a crown whose rule is oppressive. The lands of Carvenia are broken, with its scattered settlements showing resentment to the ruling sovereign, and bandit encampments slowly becoming more commonplace than friendlier villages. In Bellwright, you play as a common peasant who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. At the age of 10, you wandered into the forest and coincidentally found the prince and princess of the Carvenian kingdom playing in the forest right before an ambush. In a second, an arrow struck the prince from the bushes, instantly killing him. You stood over the body in confusion, only to be seen by the princess and assumed to be the murderer. With the king ordering any child matching your description executed, you ran to a distant land. After 10 years of hiding, the king was killed in a rebellion from his ruthless executions, and the princess has become the evil queen of Carvenia. Your guardian who snuck you out of the kingdom is suddenly assassinated, leaving behind only a coin with a strange symbol, and now you must return to the kingdom of Carvenia seeking answers. Unlike most other survival crafting games, however, Bellwright does not simply start and end here. The world of Bellwright has a good amount of folklore, history, and general world building that explains the state of the kingdom and its current declining situation. For example, the very first village you visit has its own historical synopsis on the lore tab of the codex. Halmare is believed to be the oldest settled village in the lowlands. Within years of its establishment, it became divided on the growth of the village north or towards the valleys. This led to the election of an elder to decide, and a sabotage that led to a literal chicken becoming an elder. He was said to be uninspiring and indecisive, and was later replaced by a human. You can also expect some additional lore coming in through the newly added map in the update, covering a whole different area known as the Halmare Isles. But moving on from the chicken elders, let's get into the real bulk of the game, which is the gameplay. Bellwright has core gameplay mechanics with some RPG features that you will probably recognize, complex settlement and town building systems, as well as survival aspects that you uncover as you progress the game. You can play with up to 4 players in co-op, with the host holding the save file for all character progression, or purely playing solo if that's more your style. You get the basic stats like a health bar and stamina bar on the top left of your screen, equipped tools on the bottom left, and a mini-map on the bottom right. The world of Bellwright is handmade and curated rather than procedurally generated, so all players will begin their journey in the fort north of Halmare village. From there, you progress the game southwards, exploring other villages, encountering bandit camps, creating settlements, and recruiting people to help you in your quest. Eventually, you will get to a point where you'll be able to amass armies to liberate villages from the ruling factions. Your ultimate goal is to liberate all the villages on the map by advancing from primitive weapons like a spiked club to full plate armor with swords and shields. But you'll likely find a lot of entertainment within recruiting companions, creating your base, and tinkering with the automation of your settlements. To start, let's go over the basics on survival and crafting. In Bellwright, you'll start off crafting by collecting wood from sticks, loose stones, and flax from foliage to create your very own shack to sleep in, marking the beginning of your settlement. Choosing where you place this shack is actually quite important. You don't want it too close to villages, since you cannot harvest resources near villages, and you don't want it too far from them for when you need to do questing. Once you get that sorted, you'll need to find food to stave off hunger from berries or mushrooms. From here, you can get a workbench and research table and can just start going crazy with progression. You'll unlock tools like axes and pickaxes to mine stone and cut trees instead of looking for those loose sticks and stones, and you can start looking for various resources on the map like copper and tin or river reeds. Once you make your first shack, there are a ton of possibilities and rabbit holes to go down in order to acquire useful items or belongings. The crux of this system is the tech tree, where you can see the research requirements for crafting various workbenches, items, weapons, armor, miscellaneous tools, and buildings for improving your settlement. For example, a windmill to convert grain to flour, stables to breed and butcher animals, food cellars to store food for winter without it spoiling, travel signs to teleport around the map, and dirt roads to connect settlements, and much, much more. There's definitely a lot to unpack in Bellwright, and it can seem incredibly daunting at first due to the sheer amount of materials required to build everything, but this is where the recruiting mechanic of the game comes into play, leading us to villages and recruiting. Villages are your main source of manpower. You'll be able to recruit any NPC within a village given you meet all prerequisites, allowing you to control them as a companion. All villages start out as being occupied by brigands and other factions, with quests available shown on your minimap to pick up. Quests can involve a variety of objectives such as finding or crafting certain items, dealing with nearby bandit camps, or navigating villager drama and deciding the outcome from your dialogue decisions. There's actually some nuance within most of these quest lines that makes it worth reading, so be sure not to skip the dialogue. To give an example, one of the early quests is about a creepy man seen at night wandering the village. You can either attack him or talk to him to discover that he's trying to escape his bandit tribe and that there is a treasure chest hidden in one of the bandit camps. When you complete quests, kill nearby bandits, or sell special items to the village elder, you can gain a few of the key resources related to villages: gold, trust, or renown. Gold is the currency you can use to buy items from local traders such as blacksmiths and booksellers in villages, or simply passerby merchants walking along the road. Trust is basically your reputation with the village, having 4 tiers: associate, friend, protector, and Bellwright. Starting from associate, you'll meet the prerequisite for local village beggars to consider your recruitment offers. As you increase trust to further tiers, you'll be able to recruit more skilled villagers as your companions, such as normal citizens and then apprentices. Once you reach protector rank, you'll have the option to liberate the village from the faction controlling them. Renown is your currency to recruit people. The more skilled a person is, the more expensive they will be to recruit. Just like trust, you earn this through completing quests and defeating bandits. Once you recruit an ally, there are quite a few systems to consider in order to use them efficiently. Firstly, for each settlement you set up, you can bring up a list of all the buildings in the settlement and set a priority rating to each of them so as to allocate your population to specific things. You can also give specific people priority activities, such as making one person never do cooking or crafting, but always do harvesting. This can be a huge process once you get later on in the game with around 50 to 100 production buildings and 50 plus people to manage, but once done right, it will yield fantastic automatic farming to further advance your society. When you're considering who to assign to what activity, you'll want to take a look at their innate attributes, which is basically their stat spread. Every single recruit, including the player themselves, have combat attributes and work attributes. Combat attributes consist of strength to wield certain weapons and to be beefier in combat, agility for speed, and weapon-specific skills for one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, polearms, shields, and bows. Work attributes include harvesting, farming, animal handling, cooking, crafting, researching, and labor, tasks such as logging. And while you can simply level up skills that are lacking on certain characters, there is also a max cap mechanic which locks a character's skill to a certain max level instead of up to 10. This makes a huge difference since a level 9 harvester will have a 70% productivity bonus over a level 2 harvester, so keeping a close eye on stat allocations when you recruit people from villages is very important. Besides the attributes, some people will also have innate traits, some good and some bad. For example, they could be a coward, making them weak in combat, or tireless, making their endurance very strong. They could be a marksman, reducing effectiveness with melee weapons in exchange for stats with a bow, or neurotic, making them more productive but more prone to death. And lastly, one more system to keep an eye on is the morale of your population. This can be affected by innate traits as well as just their general living conditions. If they eat nothing but berries all day for weeks, they'll be pretty upset. If they live fancy with a huge house in the late game, they'll enjoy having a place of their own. The more morale they have, the more damage, health, and stamina, and productivity they have, making them that much more efficient. One note on combat, though, is that it's worth mentioning that there is a Mordehau-esque combat system in the game which revolves around the weapon swing direction and block direction. You can even do feints or lengthened attacks, which is some nice added depth in the combat department. Once you sort out the production chain and create a fully fledged ecosystem of workers, you can begin creating armies with your stronger recruits to liberate villages, invade bandit camps, and travel to the brand new area that just released today in the new update, the Halmare Isles. So let's talk a little bit about that. Once you complete a dock, you can leave the area to set sail to the newest stage of the game, the Halmare Isles. You can bring an exorbitant amount of food with you, as well as up to 10 fully geared companions from Carvania to help you navigate the new island, which will be quite important since none of your production, tools, or inventory can be easily accessed overseas. This new map is about the same size as Carvania itself, if not bigger, with an entirely different biome to explore as well as a narrative-driven storyline and faction choices. The Halmare Isles are focused on the RPG side of the game, acting more as an endgame raid map where it's less about building a settlement and more about exploration and conquering things with your posse of armed mercenary soldiers. The highlight of this location, which you would definitely check out first, is Crag Keep, a medieval city built not unlike Novigrad as the large castle capital of Halmare. You can expect quests and missions to explore within the area of Crag Keep, some of which will include dueling the local garrison, finding a drunk man's pants, or unveiling corrupt schemes within the political system. Alternatively, you can load up an arrow and quiver and start blasting the local population if you want. Just be wary that you'll get the entire town guard's attention, which usually doesn't end up very pretty. The enemies here are quite tough, so properly upgraded endgame gear and weapons are necessary in order to stand a chance in this zone. Besides Crag Keep, there will be several other points of interest to explore in the Halmare Isles, as well as new materials that you can bring back to Carvenia. Points of interest will also include new quests and activities, and you'll be able to keep any of your tools by raising your reputation enough to trade with merchants and spend gold to refresh any supplies. There will also be a new currency, Doll's Tier Alcohol, which you can trade for as well. Once you progress far enough into the main story by exploring the other points of interest within the map, you will eventually have an audience with the king at Crag Keep, but we won't go into any more to avoid spoilers. Visually, Bellwright is pretty demanding since it's definitely one of the better looking survival games out there, and the graphics are quite strong for a fully open world survival with buildings and large populations, with combat animations that are quite fluid in my opinion. So it's definitely one of the better looking survival crafting games out there. But performance-wise, I didn't really run into any performance issues with the game. I had a couple of long load screens now and there, but I was able to keep a solid 60 FPS running at 1440p, with everything on high running a 3090. So it was pretty good in my opinion. It's probably not the best out there, but it is a very, very pretty looking game and runs decently well. Final thoughts. Bellwright is definitely one of the better looking games I've played in the survival genre, with some ambitious game design that chases RPGs and the co-op and survival itch all at once in a medieval genre. With more updates coming, the scope of Bellwright is quite massive, and it already has a fully fleshed out survival, town building, and RPG experience, and with the update that's coming out today, it's adding a whole new zone to test your might in. There's still room for improvement in the story itself, having not quite wrapped it up yet, but I definitely see more coming in the horizon for Bellwright. If you like the look of Bellwright, or maybe have some friends that you want to try a survival game out with, you should definitely check this one out. The base price is $29.99, but it will be on sale from December 3rd to January 5th during the new update period, so you can get 34% off during that time, which is not bad in my opinion. That makes this game about $19.99 during that time. Again, a big shout out to Snail Games for sponsoring this video. If you guys like what you see and you want to check it out, you can use our link below to do so.